Hello, my name is Grant Humphries, and I'm the Director of Science of Oceanites. We're a US-based NGO that's been counting penguins in Antarctica for 30 years. Our main role is to count penguins and present those data to stakeholders to make conservation decisions. For more information about our organization, please head to oceanites.org. For the last couple of years, we've been making use of DJI technologies to be able to count penguins and use the visualization tools provided by DJI to be able to tell stories about how Antarctic penguins are changing in our ever-evolving world. So all I'm going to do today is just briefly talk about how we use DJI technologies to plan our missions, and also how we use them to visualize the information that we present to stakeholders. We use a couple of pieces of software primarily. The first in our pre-planning phase is DJI Flight Hub 2. It's a really fantastic piece of kit, and is really, at the moment, has made a huge difference in how we do our fleet management in the field. This means because now a lot of these vessels have Starlink on board, it means that we can plan our surveys from a base station. So I could be at home planning these missions based on where we're going to be going. And then our pilots in the field can be downloading those directly to their RC pads, and then flying the missions when they arrive at a colony. So we fly the DJI Mavic 3 thermal, and these drones have been incredibly useful, not only for determining where penguins are by using the infrared imagery, and that's important for some species like chinstrap penguins who tend to nest down in little crevices, sometimes where you can't always see them. But it also allows us to ensure that the image that we're capturing is encapsulating all of the penguins in their sort of sub-colonies. The other great advantage of the Mavic 3 thermal is that it's lightweight, so we can attach skis to it, some float skis, and launch them from Zodiacs, small motorboats that come off of the expedition ships. It's also very easy to set up in the field. We can be up and flying within 3 or 4 minutes, and that's been incredibly helpful when we have only a limited amount of time at a site. So within the DJI Flight Hub software, as you can see, we can do our fleet management from our team side. Here I can select which members are parts of the team, and all of our pilots have signed in to this project, which makes it easier for me then to sort of pass around information to different pilots as we go. Our flight route library, of course, consists primarily of mapping missions. We do the odd waypoint mission. What we find is with the DJI Flight Hub software, there isn't a way of using the 8K sensor settings on the camera. And so the way to do that is to run a waypoint mission, and then we kind of trick the aircraft into using the 8K setting rather than just the standard 4K setting. The 8K setting on the DJI Mavic 3 thermal makes a huge difference to the quality of the imagery that we get at the end of the day. So we do use waypoint missions for that. So to give you an example, I'm going to go here down through our flight list, and we're going to go to an island here called Cooverville. This is the largest Gen 2 penguin colony in Antarctica. And you can see here what we've done is we've programmed waypoints in. When we fly these waypoint missions, what we do is after the aircraft takes off, we set the camera to take images, timed interval shots along the waypoints, and in between the waypoints, I should say. And what we do with that is after we've taken off, the aircraft is switched over to 8K mode. We basically turn on the camera and turn on the 8K setting on the camera. And that means that when it flies these waypoints, it'll actually take the 8K images rather than just the 4K images. Within the DJI Flight Hub 2 software, we primarily use mapping missions. And within these mapping missions, all we simply do is draw polygons around our sites, as you can see here, and the DJI Flight Hub software kind of takes care of the rest. Now, these sites obviously have a lot of topography. What we do there is we download digital elevation model data. The digital elevation model data are fed into our remote control pads in the field, and then we associate our tracks with those digital elevation models. And that means we get really, really good imagery. And we also don't risk the drone coming down too quickly into a group of penguins. So I'll quickly show you what that looks like in here. So at the moment, most of our flights are programmed to fly at 50 meters. In the future, we'll be dropping that down to 30 meters. But even at 50 meters, we get relatively good imagery. 1.76 centimeters per pixel is reasonable for counting penguins. Once we get into mixed colonies, where there are multiple species, dropping that down is important so we can identify the species. So in here, we can do this full flight fleet management. So in the DJI Flight Hub 2 software, we can do this full fleet management, and it makes a huge difference to how we operate in the field. So the other piece of software that we use for counting penguins is DJI Terra. Now, the great thing about DJI Terra is with a reasonable gaming laptop, you can actually do all the processing in the field. So once we've come back from a field visit and we've launched our drones, we've taken our imagery, we can import that directly into DJI Terra. And then within a couple of hours, in most cases, we can have fully processed orthorectified images and 3D models. And this is great for a whole pile of reasons. One is that we can immediately start counting animals in images. We can also take the 3D images and then use that for engagement with people on board the tourist vessels on the peninsula. This is really useful because one of our missions as an organization is outreach. It's about trying to encourage people to study and understand the changes in Antarctica and how we can take those lessons and bring them back into our day-to-day lives. So being able to do this in the field is incredibly useful, and we wouldn't be able to do that without a piece of software like DJI Terra. So this is a colony that we visited this past season called Tellish Rock. This is a Gen 2 penguin colony, and immediately you can see it's got pretty reasonable resolution here. Got some elephant seals down below. I can zoom in quite nicely. Here we go. Here's our Gen 2 penguins sat on nests. If I zoom into the mission here, we'll put this in 3 dimensions and you'll get a better idea of what this looks like. So now we're in the 3D part of our mission, and we can explore this a little bit. Zoom in and see our penguins on nests. The great thing about the 3D models is that you get a little bit more context about the image that you don't get from the 2D image. For example, here you can really see the nest mounds. So these are Gen 2 penguins sat on nests, and you can really see the nest mounds here. Now this was taken from 50 meters in height above the colony. So about 1.76 centimeters ground sample distance. If we lower this, which we plan to do in upcoming seasons, down to 30 meters, we'll probably get much finer results, which will really, really help with our penguin counting. The other cool thing, too, is we get these really lovely images of elephant seals that are pulled up on beaches. Biologists can use these sorts of photogrammetry approaches to look at elephant seal health. By using the annotation tools that are built into DJI Terra, you can take volume measurements of these objects, and then from the volume measurements, you can use a mass to volume ratio to get the overall mass. And the mass of these animals tells us a lot about their overall health. So here we go, zooming through our penguin colony. These are Gen 2 penguins, like I said before, and over here we actually have another species. These are Antarctic shags, or Antarctic cormorants, and these guys here are also on nests. The 3D modeling that we can do in DJI Terra really has vastly changed how we engage with people and also how we count these animals. I can sit here, for example, use the annotation tools and annotate these animals in 3D. And when I annotate the animals, that not only do I get the XY coordinates, but I also get the Z coordinates, so the altitude. And what that allows us to do over time is start building an image of the topography of these colonies. And that's going to tell us a lot about these animals' biology, why they nest where they do, and how they set up, and where they set up. And at the end of the day, what that helps us to do is build our stories about how these penguins are changing in time and space, and what that means for us as humans. Thanks very much, everyone, and it was lovely to see you all.